All right, this is for Samwise Hearn from Level Up. So the first and foremost thing that I'm going to say right off the bat is you kind of want to watch your composition a little bit. So if I go like this, and I go about three-quarter view and three-quarter view, and the composition I think is good. You've got this is a major element, and her face is a major element, and that's what I like about it. What I don't think works is that you have a lot of stacking elements. So you've got the her face, you've got her hands in the shackles, and you've got the hookah. You've got his head, you've got the cat, and you've got everything kind of, straight up, straight across. Um, there's really nothing leading me to, like, even this feels very straight, and very straight. So what you want to do is you want to put in more diagonals, and by doing that, that will help out, I think, a lot in your composition. And so those are things that you want to kind of pay attention to. The other thing that you want to do is you're understanding the form. So looking at this, you see that this is the dark side, this is the light. So what you want to do is you want to have kind of a set composition or set form down. So that basically means, your lights are all on this side if your light is coming from this direction, and you've got it where this is dark, but you want to have more. Um, I think you want to do more so that it is a, how do I want to put this? Accents his face a little bit more. Um, I think you've got too many lights and too many uh, uh, unconventional lighting methods here. So to do this, the first thing that I would do is, um, let's start with fixing this a little bit. What I would do is, let's see here. I would take and I don't know what this is here. Like, this feels awkward. Like, I don't get what it is. It feels like a bunny rabbit, but it doesn't. It's too much, too close to the edge, and that needs to be solved. Um, and so looking at this, my eye is, if I'm looking at this from a standpoint of a visual aspect, this color instinctively draws my eye, but the problem I'm having is it draws my eye, and this is leading me down. I don't want to look at the face of this character, and this is drawing my eye because of the focal point. There's too many brights in here, and everything kind of leads basically to her, but I'm not looking at her because um, everything's kind of drawing my attention away. There's too many bright focal areas, and so I think that needs to be fixed first. So looking at this, the way I would change it is I wouldn't drag this down like so. I wouldn't drag this down. What I would probably do is, if I'm going to do the caterpillar, what I would probably do is extend them out a little bit more. And so let's try something like, let me just grab this. And let's transform it and warp it. And do you see how by just warping it like this, and even putting it off the screen like this, and let's see, let's kind of flesh that out. So even starting something like that, all right, I think that's a better start. And then what I would do is, if you've got the darks here, So I would grab this dark here and start painting a lot of this outward. Make the underside very dark and push it back in space a little bit more. You know, especially since doing that is going to really push and get that dark shadow in the foreground, because again, it's these elements that are darkening, and I don't need to pay attention to it, especially with the darkness of, you know, things like that. And let's get some darks more in there, and more like that. And I'm really pushing this forward. And I think the bunny element has potential, but I think the bunny needs a lot more focus on it. And so let's just darken all this. And I'm going to start, let's create a new layer here, and just so I don't destroy, I'm really going to kind of and I get you want to see your panties and stuff, but what you want to do is really push those lights and darks, and push under the belly here, give that a shadow. And you see how I'm doing that by doing this, even pushing in. Let me grab this one and erase a little bit here. But even by pushing this in and giving dark as layers, okay, and then as this starts going off, then I'm losing a lot of the shadow. And you could probably even put a little bit of a shadow on her from the tail. All right. And by doing that, you start seeing I'm getting more focus into this particular piece. And you can still have him in the light, and this in the dark here. And let's just erase that out a little bit. But you can start seeing how okay. But you start seeing how now she becomes more prevalent because she's a bigger light source. And I think you're doing good on the atmospheric perspective with the tree here. But again, you know, push the back a little bit further back. Push it a little bit more. Don't give me as much light as this, like so. And it's going to be a very dark composition. I shouldn't see any of this underside here, so on and so forth. And essentially, I'm just starting to build up things like that. Under the shadow, put shadows there. A little bit, even go a little bit darker, and bring out her face from that hidden area here. Maybe even just kind of erase that like so. So do you see now how by just doing that, that's adding a little bit more of, you know, more effect for her? I would also go in and possibly even like so. So then once that's in there, once I've got a lot of that, because looking at it now, versus before, it's too busy. There's too much going on here. And by getting rid of that, I mean, you can still show accents, but by getting rid of that, I'm now taking and starting to accent those colors and that aspect. Now, the other aspect is you've got the bunny here in white, or in black, and the problem is just being in black. That bunny is really just, it's kind of a tangent, and the ears come up like this. It just doesn't feel right. But if I took the ears and let's I'm just going to warp them. So do you see how by putting the ear down here, um, it creates, I don't want to go a little bit higher, but it creates like, now it creates a little bit more tangent. And I would just outline this, and I'd put the bunny nose in there, and maybe a little bit of a higher glint in the eye, something to kind of bring in that crazy look, and that will give me more of a focal area. And especially if it's got, the pupil. And you see how by doing that, and even just like spreading the nose a little bit, by doing that, that now gives me a focal area. I can even flap the ears a little bit. And I think that gives me a much better focal area now. It's making more sense that it's a bunny. And then what you want to do is tone her down because everything's blue. So what I would do is create a new layer and start, if you're going to add that blue in there, blue everything, and it's just give me that tonal value that it's blue. If you want a white light, that changes the aspect as well. If you want that bright light, start popping in some of that as a screen, and we're just going to grab in the hair like this. And do you see how by adding that white light in there, that starts adding and making more sense? But the thing you want to be aware of is you've got a blue tone here and a blue tone in the sky. So what color is everything? If you're going strictly blues, then it's more of a monochromatic piece with the green accents. I would even dull down these pieces here, unless you want that purple aspect in there. So again, it boils into what color are you maintaining with. I think the character design is fine. It's just everything stands out so much where now at least I've, even though this is very rough, at least this gives me the aspect of now I've got a sense of what's going on. There was too much stuff before. Let me just merge these layers. And merge this one. So before it was everything's very bright, whereas now I'm starting to accent her a little bit more and get a little bit more of what's going on. I would move, let's see here, I'd probably take the cat and move the cat. I would move the cat sideways, and then I would actually move the cat over in the corner, like so. And the reason I would do that is because then it doesn't become a full character. It just gives me a sense of where this, it just gives me a better sense of that the cat itself. Like I said, I would, maybe even move it over and then make the moon, you know, something like that. And that's going to give you a better sense of what's going on, and I think that's a big aspect right there. Now, the other thing that bothered me was the way the chains are. Like you've got it uh, around the toadstool or whatever that is, but it doesn't feel realistic. What I would do is, I'm just gonna grab. I think I've got a chain here someplace. Where are we at here? Rings, links. This will work. So we're just going to turn off this. We're going to take this off. We're going to do angle jitter, and we're going to do direction. And let's change the tip shape and change the spacing. All right. So what we've got here is you've got these chains, and what you want to do is you can darken them and or create light here, and that'll actually lighten that up. But also you want to, if this is taunt, if her arms are straight up and down, maybe you want to take these and bring those up. Let me take off these two. You want to take these up and wrap it around here. And again, this is a bad chain brush, but you get the idea. It gives you that sense of, you know, tautness, and it makes it look a little bit more interesting, and it stands out a little bit more. And then this hose, I wouldn't make this hose nearly as long. What I would do with the hose is bring it down here. And this works great for your hose brush, but I would bring it down here, maybe something like that, and that way, by bringing this and hiding it, all right, and that gives you a sense of it's not short and it's not drooping all over the place. I would even maybe consider bringing it down here, and then bring it down here, and then droop it back here like so. Um, gives it some form, or even put a coil here and then droop it down. So it's got some slack in it. But to drape it all the way down, the problem is it's it's too much into the way of things, um, and it just doesn't feel like it's got a weird, like, kind of naturalness to it. It doesn't. I mean, this here is like kind of flowing all over the place, whereas this has got a little bit more sense of, where things are coming from. So, and then what I would do is I would actually go and create a new layer. I'd actually create a levels, no, not a levels layer. Let's dump that. A color balance layer. So hue, saturation, color. Where is it? Gradient map. Hue, saturation. Let's do that. So what I would do is just take this here, not like that, but more like this, and do you see how by changing that a little bit more green, um, like this, And then let's go into the mask and pick a dark color here and start bringing out some of those blues. But by changing that color up, I think that really helps push the aspect of what you're trying to go for. It tones your values okay. And then I would also be aware too that you're blowing smoke. Don't make the smoke cross over here because it looks like this is the creation of the smoke. What I would do for the smoke is, let's grab a new layer here. What I would do for the smoke is bring the smoke up here in wisps and then bring this, and I know this is rough, and I like the way you did paint the smoke. I think that was a really good job. But I think by putting whiffs of smoke in there, I think that makes it feel a little bit better. And then if you give it a sense of, like it gets up so high and then it starts wafting over here, that becomes a whole another aspect to the story. It adds a little bit of movement. So that's something that I would probably take a look at. I mean, there's a lot of compositional elements. I would look into the tangents and things like that. But from this here to this, I think it separates your characters better. Here, it's just too much detail, not enough lighting, not enough shadows and stuff like that going on. Whereas here, by adding all that into it, it now changes the whole feeling of that character, or of the character and the creation of the character. It gives me kind of a sense of what's going on, and now I'm at least going from now looking at it. I'm looking at this character first because it's brought out further, and then this character is looking here, and then what I would do is I would almost tilt her head up so that this character looks at this one, and then this character is looking here. So that way you keep a triangle going on of who's, who looking at who, because we tend to look at the way people look. So instinctively I'm looking at the bunny because it's now in the foreground and it's much more prominent. Then I'm looking at her because she's a secondary figure, and if she was looking up at him, and vice versa, it would keep me on the page longer. Also, one of the things that you want to pay attention to is, and this I even do it myself, when you're doing an artist or when you're doing a painting like this, don't just like keep this emotionless face on it. Open the mouth a little bit more, and even darkening the interior of the mouth. Let's give her some dark red lipsticks. And this is a horrible job because it just doesn't have the detail in there. But opening her eyes wide, things like that, getting the eyes wider, giving it a look of fear, and then changing the expressions to match, like maybe surprise, fear, and discontent. But those are the things that I would kind of tell you to look at. All right, I hope that helps.